Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Raw Relationships Are Work, the podcast where we talk about the relationships that shape us romantic, family, friendship, and the one we have with ourselves. Real relationships and all the layers that come with them. I'm Tara, and every episode starts with a letter that opens up space for conversation. With today's letter, we are exploring a relationship dynamic that doesn't explode, but it erodes. And it's about a situation that I think so many of us have had to deal with. We are talking about what happens when you hold on to hurt, when someone lets you down again and again, but you never told them. So let's start with the letter. Let me read it to you. Dear Tara, I've been holding on to some hurt. There's someone close to me who I love and who I've supported in a lot of ways. They often take credit for things I've helped them with ideas, projects, even stuff I built from scratch. I've helped bring their ideas to life. And while they've thanked me privately, when it came time to share those wins with the world, it was like I disappeared from the narrative. They took full credit. Publicly, it was their project, their idea, their work. I wasn't acknowledged. Not as a contributor, not even as someone who helped get them across the finish line. It didn't sting at first, but over time, it did. And the more it happened, the more invisible I started to feel. The thing is, I never said anything. I brushed it off, told myself it wasn't worth the conflict. But now, I feel this weight between us. I still show up for them, but I've become quieter, less giving, less open. I don't want to stay in this place of resentment. But I also don't know how to suddenly bring it all up when I never gave them a clue that anything was wrong. How do you tell someone they've hurt you when you never said it was a problem? This letter, it speaks to something I think that many of us feel, but we don't really say. And that's when you realize that you've been generous, helpful, available, and erased. And what's hard is that when the thing that hurts you wasn't even meant to hurt. When you know the person didn't mean any harm, but it still made you feel so small. And what's even harder is when it keeps happening. And that's the space this letter writer is sitting in. This isn't about trying to take anything away from someone they care about. They're proud of them. They've celebrated them. They want them to win. But I'm sensing that this is the struggle that they feel about the person. They don't understand, why does building yourself up have to come at the cost of minimizing someone who helped you? Don't want applause. Don't want, you're not asking for flowers, but some acknowledgement. Yeah, that would be nice. And that would be honest. Because the truth is, in these situations, you show up. You helped carry it. You brought things to life behind the scenes. And when the moment came to honor that, even just with a simple word, it didn't happen. And you might be told yourself, it's okay. I don't need the spotlight. And you don't, but you do need respect. And lately, you've been noticing the absence of that, because acknowledgement is not about ego. It's about honor, respect, and integrity. And when it doesn't come, even when you never asked for it, it can hurt. And guess what, letter writer? And anyone else who has this experience, it's okay to feel that. Even if it's been days, weeks, months, or years, even if you stayed quiet at the time. Let's talk about this, right? So, how do we deal with this? What do we do with hurt that we never expressed, especially when we don't want to burn a bridge or be the one to cause pain, but we can't keep swallowing it either? And this can be hard, right? What do we do with it? Why don't we speak up right away? There are so many reasons. We don't want to seem dramatic. We minimize our own feelings. We value peace more than truth. And We'll assume it'll pass, or maybe we don't believe we're allowed to ask for better, especially with family, close friends, especially when we've played the role of the helper, the fixer, or the strong one. It can get blurry. We think they didn't mean it. I'm probably overreacting. But that's how little wounds grow deep roots. Here's the truth: silence does not protect the relationship, it strains it. When we don't speak up, we don't actually let it go. We start building distance, the tone changes, the generosity starts to fade, and the warmth gets replaced with obligation. You might still show up, but it's not the same. And over time, the other person starts to feel that shift, and they may have no idea why it's happening. And you start to feel guilty for feeling anything at all. But feelings don't expire just because we kept them in. And pain doesn't become less valid because we delayed naming it. But here is the soul searching question: is it always worth it to bring it up, especially when you know or strongly suspect it will hurt the other person? And the honest answer is not always. But when the silence is starting to hurt you, it may be time. Because here's what I hear in the letter writer's story: this wasn't a one time oversight, it's a pattern. Their family member, their friends, whoever, they benefited from the gifts, the time, the labor, but protected their own spotlight at the cost of the letter writer's recognition. You know, they've stayed gracious and supportive, but the silence is starting to feel like self betrayal. You've been generous, deeply generous, very generous, but also deeply minimized. And that is the part that can put a wedge in that closeness and leave you grieving a relationship that's still technically intact. So here's the real work. Before speaking, if that's what you decide to do, you have to ask yourself, or even when you're trying just to make that decision about whether to speak or not to speak, ask yourself what you're hoping to get out of the conversation. Because telling the person might make them defensive. It could cause tension or guilt, or it could lead to an apology that still doesn't change the behavior. But it might also be the beginning of truth telling between you. It might create an opportunity for the other person to grow. And it will definitely free you from the feeling of holding it in. So, what now? If you decide to have the conversation, how do you say it? And let's be honest, it's awkward. It's awkward, but not impossible. And here's a place to start. You could say something like, I realize I've been holding some things in that I never actually brought to you, and that's on me. I take responsibility for not saying something sooner, but it doesn't mean the hurt wasn't real. And if you start like that, right, you're not blaming, you're not rewriting history, you are telling the truth now, and you're doing it with care, right? You can say, there were moments that, felt dismissive or one sided, and I never addressed it. You could say, I stayed quiet to keep the peace, but I realized it came at the cost of my peace. You could say, this is hard for me to say, but I don't want to keep silently pulling away. Because the goal for this conversation isn't to punish, it's to clear the air, to stop pretending everything's fine when your heart knows otherwise. What if you're afraid that they'll be hurt or defensive? You know what? They might be. That's a part of it. But you're not telling them that they're a bad person. At least I don't think you are. Maybe you are. I don't know. But I imagine that you're not telling them that they're a bad person. You're telling them how it felt to be in relationship with them when your needs or your pain were invisible. You're trusting the relationship enough to bring honesty into it, even if it shakes things up. If they can't hold that space, That's information too. Not a punishment, just clarity. It brings you some clarity about what this relationship might mean or not mean to them. Now, if you decide not to bring it up, not to have that conversation, that's okay too. You are allowed to protect your peace by setting internal boundaries. And that might mean no longer offering your creative energy so freely. It might mean emotionally detaching a bit without declaring any kind of war. It might mean releasing that person from the role of someone who will do right by you and accepting them as they are. That's a boundary too. And it doesn't make you fake, it makes you discerning. So, no, it's not always worth it to confront, but it is always worth it to honor what you're feeling and to choose what protects your well being, whether that's speaking up or stepping back. And just in case you might be on the fence or, have all these different thoughts in your head, remember, it's not about being petty. It's about being honest. It's about being real because you're not asking for any kind of trophy. You don't want a marching band or anything like that. You're just asking to be seen. You're not imagining it. When someone repeatedly dismisses or downplays your contribution, it hits, right? That deserves space. You don't have to accuse. You can just express, right? You're saying, I realized I've been feeling overlooked in situations where I've contributed a lot. I know you probably didn't mean it that way, but it's been bothering me. Here is what, and I like to refer to my scriptures. So, Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24 says, So, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother. Now, what it specifically and literally says, Jesus here is speaking specifically to the offender, the person who realizes someone has a grievance with me. It's a call to take the initiative in making things right, even if the other person hasn't brought it up yet. And I think that's pretty radical, right? He's saying, don't just worship, go repair what's broken first. But here is why I think that it still speaks to the hurt person too, right? If Jesus asks us to stop what we're doing to reconcile when we're the one who caused harm, doesn't that also show us how God values resolution and relational honesty, whether you're the offender or the offended? If you're the one carrying this hurt silently, it's still a call to do something about it. Not for revenge, not to guilt the other person, but because unresolved tension has a way of putting a wedge between you and your own peace. Now, this passage technically calls out the one who caused the offense. But like I said, I think it speaks to both sides, whether you're the one who hurt someone or the one carrying the hurt. God cares about you getting honest and making room for repair. When something is off in a relationship, don't ignore it. Address it because healing doesn't start with silence. It starts with intention. And like I said, even God says, go make it right first. Whether you're the one hurt or the one who's hurt someone else, it's worth asking, what's sitting between me and someone I care about that hasn't been said? And remember, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15 says, speak the truth in love. And I think this verse is quoted a lot, but it's rarely lived out. Truth without love wounds, but love without truth, it suffocates. Telling someone they've hurt you, especially after a long silence, is an act of emotional courage, not cruelty. You can speak truthfully and tenderly. That's what mature love and relationship looks like. So, to recap, real talk. Not every hurt is safe or simple to bring up. Sometimes the person who's hurt you is someone you're still in a relationship with, someone you love, someone you still do life with, and that makes things complicated. You start asking yourself, is it even worth it to say something now? Won't it just cause drama? What if they get defensive? What if they feel attacked? And those are fair questions because speaking up doesn't guarantee closure. Some people don't receive hard truth well. Some people protect their ego more than they protect the relationship. But you also have to ask, what is the cost of continuing to say nothing? Because silence, it might keep the peace on the surface, but it will eat away at your trust. It'll eat away at your warmth and your ability to keep showing up fully. And before long, you're still in the room with them. You're still laughing, kikiing and everything, still working together, but your spirit has already started walking away. I know some of you have felt that. I'm not going to lie. I have felt that. Sometimes I feel like I'm living that. And I still don't have the perfect answer. But here's what I do know. If you choose to speak up, you're not being petty. If you choose to step back, you're not being passive aggressive. You are protecting the part of you that deserves dignity in every relationship, including the ones that feel too close to challenge. So, up to this point, if you've been nodding along or feeling a little exposed right now, you are not alone, right? Before we wrap up, here are a few reflection questions and maybe some steps to help you move away from sitting with the weight to maybe lifting it up just a little. Where have I been holding pain instead of expressing it? What kept me from speaking up? And is that still true today? How can I bring honesty into this relationship without blame? What can you do? Well, I think that one way to start, if you're not quite ready to speak, is to start with writing things down, maybe journaling or something. Write what exactly hurt you and what would you want them to understand. And that might even help you, like when you're ready to have that conversation. Pick your moment. You don't need to drop this in the middle of a party or anything. Look, or even in the middle of an argument. That'd be a bad time. But look for a calm space. Look for a calm time. And finally, start with honesty. Start with honesty. I've realized something's been building and I'd rather clear the air out than let it change how I show up for you. Something as simple as that. As simple as that. So, if you're walking through this too, trying to find the words, the right moment, or just the courage, I hear you. It's not too late to name what hurt you. Your silence may have delayed the conversation, but it didn't cancel your right to have it. And if someone brings you that kind of truth, take a breath before defending. Sometimes love means listening to what we didn't realize we did, right? If this episode stirred something in you, share it. Send your own Dear Tara letter to relationshipsarework@gmail.com or leave me a message on WhatsApp. And as always, you can shop my journals, check out Unfiltered Perspectives, or stay connected at linktree/revealyou. That's linktr.ee/revealyou. Until next time, remember, this is raw. Relationships are work, but the work is so, so, so very worth it. Bye.